Bases dropped on a new round of soccer down here. It's Thursday, so it's a Thursday power hour. Wow. I did not realize that had happened since I last looked in the mirror. All right, so I'll try to fix it a little bit. Might look a little better by the time I get on television later today. Noon is on the GPB Sports Facebook page, where Hannah Gooden and I go over everything going on in high school football here in the state of Georgia for a half an hour. And then we get ready for recruiting 2022. Hannah, Matt, and myself go through the paces of everything in high school recruiting. And that'll be taped later today as well, 7 o'clock Eastern on your Friday at GPB Sports, gpb.org, and the GPB Sports app. And that's enough about high school football. Hi, bases dropped on another round of soccer down here. It's the Power Hour on Thursdays, Thursday Thoughts. And we will have Bart Keeler coming on at the bottom of the hour to kind of break down everything when it comes to – and I've yet to figure out how to handle tomorrow, because it'll be the match itself will be going on at the same time the show will be going on. And I'm debating turning it almost into a pseudo watch along, where I'll have it off of a monitor at the side and everybody's commenting. Yeah, Ricky, we'll get into that in the first half hour. That's going to be part of what we do before Bart comes on at the bottom of the hour. Trying to figure it out. So it might be kind of like a pseudo watch along, news and notesy kind of a thing while we're watching the match as it goes. So we're trying to figure out I'm trying to figure out the format for tomorrow. So we'll see what happens with the first of the three matches on the board. And I think Bart's probably going to be very busy with us next week as well in the 9:30 slot. So we'll see how Bart's schedule is. But as always, Bart has an open invitation to crash the party at any opportunity that he has, and looking forward to getting his thoughts as we head into this window and as we go through the window. So opening kickoff, and I talked a little bit about this on the Discord this morning, and it was just a funny moment that happened while we were doing a Philip Goodrum interview. Opening kickoff, once again, brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. And there we go with the QR code right there. And once again, kickoffcoffeeco.com. You can follow them on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Instagram. A lot of folks, thank you for taking time to sample Kickoff Coffee and continue to drink Kickoff Coffee, one of the sponsors here at SDH. Use the code SoccerDownHere15. Don't forget that. SoccerDownHere15 will get you what's going on with Kickoff Coffee, and then they in turn take 10%, and then they will roll it over into initiatives toward the youth game. So very, very cool stuff there with our friends at Kickoff Coffee. I told Kefsey in the Discord that I would go behind the scenes a little bit. And like I said, it's just a funny moment. And not quite as funny as Scott Van Pelt's new puppy announcing his presence with a pit stop on the air when he was on Slow News Day. But if you listen early on in the interview with Philip Goodrum, and it was great to catch up with Philip as he's chasing after the Golden Boot in USL Championship, 1 goal behind Milan Olaski of Orange County SC currently. Olaski has 20 and Philip Goodrum has 19. We kind of got into the offseason, what he thought he needed to improve, what he's thought of this season, what he thinks of Memphis, and how Memphis thinks of themselves, with a big game tomorrow night against Lou City in the Eastern Conference and USL Championship. You'll hear some noises in the background. And Philip apologized after it was over, but the clattering that you hear is his roommate in the kitchen. It's Chris Allen. So to continue the Atlanta United 2 ties, Chris Allen and Philip Goodrum are roommates. And while Philip was doing the interview, Chris was apparently either very hungry, had just wrapped up his meal, and was trying to put dishes in the sink. That's what it sounded like to me. Philip apologized, but no, it was pretty funny to have moments like that while you're doing an interview. So that's just a little behind the scenes stuff. That Chris Allen was the noise that you heard when you were listening to the Philip Goodrum interview on the network. And once again, it is up there. It was a great conversation. Thanks to Philip, especially getting ready for a game that is as important as that one was, to take time out and hang out with us on SDH. And so it was a busy day yesterday. Dylan Butler came by And we talked about the week that was. We talked about the national team, talked about anything and everything going on in Major League Soccer. And so it was a fun Wednesday, and all those are up today on the network. Today, you will have this conversation. You will have the show. You will have Bart's segment. Nico Moreno scheduled for 5 o'clock live on the network. So we'll catch up with the Western perspective on things with Thursdays with Nico and his third cup of coffee by the time that we are there. That's your opening kickoff, brought to you by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. Once again, grab the plastic, turn the QR code. There it is. And I know that, I know that I need to figure out how to do something down here and figure out how to elevate a QR code into a fancy graphic. So we'll figure out how to do that as part of the next stages of me trying to figure out how to do things here on the show. So once again, use the code Soccer Down Here 15. And you get 15% off of your purchase. And then our friends at Kickoff Coffee in turn take 10%, and they roll it over into youth initiatives. Very, very cool stuff from our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. Yes, Ricky, we are getting into Leagues Cup. And there were a couple of takeaways that I had last night. We'll work backward. With the late game at Geodis, great crowd there, really receptive crowd at Geodis for Nashville and their match that ended up going to penalties. And it was a crazy last handful of minutes for Nashville last night. And it was interesting to see Jürgen Damm getting minutes and getting a goal. And you saw former Atlanta United 2 player Josh Bauer, former Atlanta United draft pick Josh Bauer, that was they got the first goal on the board for Nashville. That's the name of the team, Nashville. And it was Bauer and Hawkinson, and then Ake Loba almost had goal number 3, but it was reviewed to be offside. And then, of course, Ake Loba turns around. This is a sitter against America next time out. And so Nashville gets the lead late with the third goal on the board. They're up 3-2 in the 89th minute. And then just at the absolute death, 95th minute, Martinez, after Mar gets the goal in the 89th, Martinez at 90+5 sends it to penalties. And the penalties were crazy. And I think that was the atmosphere that you were hoping for in an event like this in the Leagues Cup Showcase. And, yeah, absolutely crazy environment last night. And I give full credit to the fans up there in Nashville, the Club America fans that traveled for this one. But, to see Josh Bauer and Jürgen Damm score to make it 1-1. So Bauer scores to get it 1-0. Damm scores to make it 1-1. And I know a lot of folks probably here in this footprint were sitting there going, man, where was that? But great crowd last night in Nashville. And I think that those are the kind of matches that you're looking at, especially when you have Mar scoring and then Roman Martinez scoring late to send it to penalties. That's the kind of atmosphere that you're looking for and that you're hoping for. And you saw it in the showcase, and you can only anticipate that it's going to be that much more crazy when you get into Leagues Cup that actually is chasing after something next season. So looking forward to that. And then the first match had a 45-minute weather delay attached to it at TQL Stadium with FC Cincinnati and Chivas. And Nashville won in PKs, Nix. It was 4-2 in penalties. And so 3-3 tie going to penalties. It goes straight to penalties, no extra 30 minutes or anything like that. Nashville wins in penalties 4-2. So, it was, like I said, it was a fun match there in Nashville. And then Cincinnati didn't even get to the half before the weather delay started. It was goalless for most of the first 45, goalless for all of the first 45. And then you had the 45-minute weather delay, which created some programming issues for the TV carriers, the 4-letter and Tuda NA. So you had to kind of keep an eye on Tuda NA for the first game with Cincinnati and Chivas. Then you had to go to Univision, where the Nashville game had picked up, and they had plotted to do that anyway, where it was going to be kind of split networks and figuring out viewing experiences and things like that. Yes, yeah, David, that was Atlanta United's Dom. Wife was half watching with you, and Dom got subbed off. Yeah, Dom got 60 minutes in. So it was, once again, it was good to see him and good to see him create as well. But Chivas got the first goal on the board in the 20th minute. and it took a while for Cincinnati to come back. So after the weather delay, Yakubo gets one in the 53rd. Calvin Harris gets one, then Brandon Vasquez gets one. So Cincinnati down 1-0 comes back to win it by the score of 3-1. And the crowd at TQL, and I don't know if it was weather related that the crowd was as sparse as it was, but the crowd definitely in Nashville far larger than it was, at least in the TV pictures that you saw from TQL and versus Geodis. And so it was interesting to see the dichotomy there with the two venues. But like I said, I don't know if the crowd at TQL was just general disinterest or if it was, the fact that it was a midweek and it was an international window, or if they anticipated that the weather was coming and it kind of kept people away. But great showing in Nashville. And, Cincinnati got the Duke last night, and Nashville wins in penalties. So, David asked her where she thought he'd been all year. Her response was hurt, and it sums up his time here, I think. Yeah. And Rack, our Dom. Yeah. And so it was, like I said, it was interesting to see Bauer getting minutes last night. And he's done that in Open Cup competitions and other windows outside of Major League Soccer for Nashville. And then Jürgen Damm seeing minutes last night. So yeah, it was an interesting dynamic, but good stuff from the Leagues Cup showcase last night. And now you're looking forward to seeing how it continues to grow. And tonight you've got in Leagues Cup late 10:06. You've got RSL and Atlas, and Atlas, as we all know, has not been a side that has been all that great in the Apertura. They're next to last right now. After 16 matches, they've only won 2. They lost to NYCFC in Campeones Cup, and so now they come back and they end up having to go to Rio Tinto to take on RSL in Leagues Cup Showcase. They've lost 3 in a row. They've lost 4 of 5 in league, and so as they're getting close to the end of the Apertura, there's some interesting names at the bottom of the standings in Liga MX. Atlas is next to last. Pumas is in 16th. Tijuana's in 15th. And so all of those big name clubs would not be in the playoffs right now. Obviously, there's a match or 2 to go and trying to determine who's going to be in the Apertura playoffs. But yeah, Club America's been their standard form. Monterrey, Pachuca, Santos, Tigres. And then, Cruz Azul had an awful start, and then they end up winning 3 in a row. And so now they're in 9th. They're north of the playoff bar right now. But, yeah, seeing Tijuana, Pumas, and Atlas, 15, 16, 17, that's a bit of a stunner right now when you're looking at Liga MX. Rack, honestly, so glad we don't have Leagues Cup or any of that with how this season's been. Playoffs or not, let's win out and build momentum for next season. You're probably not alone in that. And, this is the conundrum, for a fancy word this morning, about Leagues Cup. Do you want to have competition during an international window to keep you fresh and to keep you, game state active, that kind of a thing? Or do you want to just focus on getting healthy and not worrying about it and letting everybody else do that kind of stuff? But, But last night, though, Nix, I will say this: if you looked at the crowd in Nashville last night, and no, there was no. And let me look at the lineups, because the lineup for Nashville last night, there was no Mukhtar. Here was your lineup last night. Your starting lineup had Elliot Panico in net. There was no Joe Willis. Backline: Lovitz, Romney, Miller, and Bauer. Midfield: Schaffelberg, Anunga, Davis, Hawkinson, and Hawkinson had 2 of the 3 goals. And then up top, it was Bunbury and Akeloba. So, and there were multiple substitutions. I mean, there was a boatload of substitutions. The bench for Club America, just to give you an idea, 3, 6, 9, 12 dudes were there for Club America last night on their bench. And for Gary Smith, 3, 6, 8, 9. He had 9 on his bench, but on his bench, he did not have Joe Willis. He did not have Hani Mukhtar. So, you had 20 dudes if you were Gary Smith and you brought some folks up from Sacramento like you did with Bauer, who's sitting in, and Hendwala Bwana, who was at Memphis 901. So, yeah, Gary Smith was recalling folks for this particular game last night. And, yeah, no Mukhtar, no Willis, and you still get the effort that you did. And when you look at the bench for Club America, 3 guys that were in the 200s with the numbers on their back and 2 that had 100s numbers on their back. And one of the guys that scored was Martinez, and he was wearing 200. So, no, no doubt they're not burning guys for the weekend, specifically like a Hani Mukhtar. And there were injuries that were concerns last night for both teams. And you're hoping that it was just a cramp. You're hoping that it was just a bit of a knock, that it wasn't anything substantive. And that's the other rub in all of this. If we win games, there's still all right. So let's take a look at the lineups. Rack, let's take a look at the lineups for Liga MX just to answer your question. So Rack is asking, is Liga MX rotating too? He's asking because, of course, if we win games, there'll still be those making excuses for Liga MX. Okay, so here was the lineup for Club America last night, and then we'll go to the other side. Jimenez in net, backline of Layun, 2 guys that were north of 150 with the numbers on their back, and Gomez and Vasquez. Reyes, Jonah Dos Santos, Martinez wore 201. Then you had Jurgen Damm, Viñas, Rodriguez, Brian, and Martinez. So there was some firepower that was there, but there was some rotation because you've got 3 guys in the starting lineup that had numbers north of 100. And then let's go to Cincinnati and Chivas and get their starting lineup. So the starting lineup in that one was for Cincinnati, Alec Cannon net, no Celentano. Celentano was not even dressed. Evan Laura was the backup keeper. Backline, Matarrita, and it was a chance for him to get minutes. Nelson, Blackett, Jeff Cameron, who wore the armband, Raymond Gaddis, Robledo Yakubo, who really hadn't been getting a whole lot of minutes recently, got one of the goals. Alan Cruz, Santos, and Dom Baji. And so looking at Cincinnati's bench, Harris was on the bench, came on and scored. Brenner was on the bench. Lucho Acosta was on the bench. Barrial was on the bench. Brandon Vasquez on the bench, came in and scored. So that was the starting lineup for Cincy. For Chivas, Rangel in net. It looked like they pretty much put out something close to first choice. They didn't have any triple-digit guys, Chivas. Rangel in net, backline Mozo, Garcia, Mier, and Ponce. Gonzalez, Molina, Angulo, Perez, Calderon, and Zaldivar. So fairly first choice for Chivas. Looking at their bench, 3, 6, 9, 12 guys on their bench. And for Chivas, Sat Sepulveda, brought him in, got a yellow. And there was this one fire wagon change. I want to say they brought in like 4 or 5 guys at one point. Bouquet, Cisneros, Sepulveda, Olivas, a lot of their defenders, and Jimenez, their main keeper. So some rotation, especially at the back for Chivas. But at the same time, with the 12 guys that they had on the bench, you had 4 that had numbers north of 150 and 1 with a jersey number north of 200. So I would say probably more rotation, at least starting where you weren't playing academy guys or younger players. More younger players for Club America, more rotation, if that makes any sense, for America. Not as much rotation for Chivas, but they did have a deep bench with a lot of guys north of 100. And looking at the lineups last night for both Cincinnati and Nashville, there was some rotation. Some guys that have been getting minutes, not as many minutes, got a chance to shine. Like for Cincinnati, like I said, Matarrita to get healthy, Yakubo, who'd been on the bench, Ake Loba for Nashville, who has been trying to find his scoring touch and apparently might have to go someplace else to find it. You have Cameron and Blackett at the back, Alec Cannon, net, those kinds of things. And so, the lineups that you had some rotation both sides, but that the bottom line at the end of the day is that Major League Soccer got a win against Chivas and got a win in 90 minutes against Chivas. I think they only had a 10-minute halftime, too, with the weather. And then Nashville and Club America went to PKs and got the win there as well. And so Chivas in the standings is 7th right now in the Apertura. They've lost 2 in a row. But, bringing in Club America, top of the ladder, and they're right now in a race to get that top seed. You could anticipate that they would not have had a whole lot of starters in the start and that there would have been some rotation with only a 1-point lead over Monterrey and a 4-point lead over Pachuca as we're getting toward the end of the Apertura. So MLS made a statement. We'll get Bart's thoughts on that coming up, in addition to everything else that's going on in just a little bit. But other news before Bart comes in really quickly, and there were a couple of things that were overseas that I wanted to get into briefly. Where was it? It was a piece of news involving we'll talk to Bart about that. Nothing like live radio. Some news about Everton. I think Everton had hired a firm to try to find a title sponsor for what they're looking for when it comes to the new stadium, the new Riverfront Stadium that they're looking at. And so they're trying to find a sponsor, and they have hired a firm. And they will figure out how to try to get a title sponsor for their $500 million facility, and we will see what happens from there. Also on the board, getting into viewing habits today, and today being Thursday, this is where the fun starts with all of the Euros. College soccer on the ACC network, also on the B1G, women on ESPNU at 5 o'clock, FS1, Belgium and Wales. Start your Nations League. That's at 2:45. Georgetown and St. John's is at 7 o'clock. Coming up at the top of the hour, actually, we've got Nations League, and it's going to be a lot of that activity, and I'm clicking on juice boxes really quickly. League C, Kazakhstan and Belarus, that's at 10 o'clock. That's for you hardcores. That is on FS2. Then Latvia and Moldova comes on at noon. That is also on FS2. Latvia is a favorite right now to -133. Then you've got a lot of them at 2:45. You've got 8 at 2:45. You have Belgium and Wales. Belgium's a -286. Croatia and Denmark. Croatia's a +152. Denmark's a +196. France, obviously, a big favorite against Austria at a -256. Poland is a home underdog at a +289. Netherlands are a -106. League C. Lithuania is only a +134 against the Faroe Islands. Explain that one to me at a +229. Slovakia at a -213 against Azerbaijan. Turkey, -435 as Luxembourg comes to town. And in League D, Liechtenstein and Andorra, and the Andorrans are favored at a -104 as a road favorite. Liechtenstein is a +355. College soccer also continues on the SEC network at 7 o'clock with Arkansas and Auburn. 2 to NA will be where you can find Real Salt Lake and Atlas at 10 o'clock. ACC Extra has a lot of college soccer on the women's side at 7. B1G has women's soccer at 7 o'clock. ESPN Plus, college men and women, Leagues Cup Showcase at 10. Wow, there's a lot of college soccer. Fox Soccer Plus has your international friendly with Iceland, Venezuela at noon. Nations League, Poland and the Netherlands at 2:45. Fubo has Nations League. They have 6 different matches at 2:45. SEC Plus has women's. VIX has Nations League. And there we go. So that's your viewing habits. And that means that since I heard the magic sound, that we get to introduce this guy. Eight, 2, 3, 4. After the lightning bolt, it's like you're waiting for it to happen, and then all of a sudden, hey, Bart Keeler. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and ask. Obviously, I mentioned in the first half hour here on the Power Hour that you have an open invite next week.
Yeah.
With the madness that is going on next week, what days, sir, will work for you?
Monday. That is a great question. I'm not entirely sure yet. I will be traveling for work. I'll be in Las Vegas, so
Well,
there's
that's right.
a few hours of a time difference there. But I definitely will be up working in the morning. So if I'm available, I might
Uh-huh.
just pop in.
Well,
Maybe that's what I do.
okay. Well, you can either hop in, or when it's later Las Vegas time, we can tape something and
There we
put
go.
that to the network, so you're not having to get up at the 7 o'clock,
7. Yeah.
dust yourself off, get a cup of coffee like you are right now, Eastern time at 9:30. I was going to say, what's the
Shout
right?
out to the Reed College of Media at WVU.
There you
It is Black Diamond Trophy Day,
go.
so I am ready to be hurt.
Okay. All right. So we got a lot of stuff to get into here in the half hour that you're visiting with us right now. Let's go back to last night, first and foremost, and what you thought about the Leagues Cup showcase and the two matches that happened last night.
Well, one, always good to beat Mexican teams. Liga MX and the Mexican Federation is just really down bad, and it's great to continue to pile onto that. Um, but I think overall, it seemed like both games were fun. Certainly, the Nashville game, there was no shortage of, well, maybe there was a shortage of defense, but there was certainly no shortage of goal scoring and fun. Um, I don't know how great of an example these are for what the League's Cup will be, because obviously next summer we'll have a break for the League's Cup and teams will be able to devote their full talent and resources to the competition. But I think it is an indication of how the fans will respond, and it seemed like it was at least fun and something that people enjoyed seeing. I didn't get any attendance numbers. I didn't see that, but it just seemed like it was fun. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and I think that the numbers in Cincy might be skewed a little bit, considering, and the numbers in Nashville looked like the lower bowl was full, and the
Yeah, it's also weird because it's a weekday night against, a team that, yes, maybe Club America or Chivas are incredibly big names, but it's a Wednesday night. Yeah, Wednesday night.
Mhm.
And it doesn't matter. So, I think hard to say that attendance should be high, but it looked like you said, it looked like the bowls were full, at least at the lower level, and it looked like the fans were enjoying what they were watching.
Yeah, and at
And that's
TQL,
important.
absolutely, and at TQL, I think the crowd was not as large, and I don't know, once again, if it goes to the midweek material or because of the impending doom that Mother Nature was ascending on TQL with it
That was
creating
the other thing I know. The Nashville game was delayed. So,
the 45-minute weather delay
yeah.
in Cincinnati,
Yeah,
and
Cincinnati had reported attendance was 14.7, which is still better than most MLS teams get on a real day.
true,
So,
rock and
looking at
roll.
you, San Jose.
But I think it was a fun first step, and tonight RSL has their match against Atlas, who has the opportunity to lose to an MLS team for the second time in a week in 2 weeks. So we'll keep an eye
Yeah.
on it. Did I say that in my out loud voice this morning? I guess I did. All right. So the main reason that we bring you on, and by the way, very, very cool soccer for US Pod, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, that was actually a lot of fun for me to record.
And in looking at that one and kind of going down that rabbit hole, there's this one dude. Once again, sidebar before we get into actual soccer. Have you seen the guy that did the mock-ups that are now being picked up by Olive and York?
Yes.
The Declaration of Independence one?
Yep.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It's both encouraging and sad to see the amount of creativity that the U.S. soccer fan base has, and compare that to the lack of creativity that we see from Nike and U.S. soccer. But that Declaration of Independence one is really, really cool. It's also very, like, it's the perfect example of, I would love to see that in a Gold Cup year or in one of those off years where it's not a World Cup kit, because obviously, might
Yeah.
be some problems with that. But like, why not do that the year after the World Cup? Because who cares, right?
Yes.
It's a fun kit, or it's the summer kit for the Gold Cup. One of those things, because that's something that does bother me with Nike right now is they have given us some pretty creative kits the past couple years. I'm not saying I liked all of them, but they were at least creative. And then they come to this, and it's just like,
You can see the question marks over people's
Yeah,
heads.
and it is very clear that the fan base wants a very specific type of look for the World Cup. And yeah, so the Olive and York, they picked it up. You've got a really cool, hoops kit. The Waldo is coming
Yeah.
back, but it still looks slightly different than the original Waldo, and that's good. You have the blue kit with the white stars on it, which is really cool. I know back in 2017, the Gold Cup warm-ups had that look. Those are things that clearly fans want to see. So, if you're going to get a fan-made kit like that, people are probably going to buy that more than they will the Nike kits. And I would very much encourage, if you do not like what Nike put out, don't buy it. It's okay. You're not any less of a fan. You can buy one of the fan-made kits. I know personally, I'm getting one of the kits that AO put out because they're red and white stripes, and it just looks so much more like an American kit than, yeah, as noted, the Stay Puff Marshmallow Man. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, Rack is on fire with the Stay Puft reference. I mean, and you and I were going back and forth about the body glove surfer warm up stuff that they were showing yesterday at practice. At least that's what it looked like to me. You look like you was like a superhero.
and it does. It also is very tight. So I feel like both of us are right in that it seems a little bit tighter. Maybe that's just because they're more fit than we are. I don't know. It'd be tighter in different areas, that's for sure.
That is true. Yes, for those of us who are gravitationally challenged when it comes to our muscle tone, I'm right there with you. Couple of things as we head in. I guess, how are you watching tomorrow?
Well, I'll be up early.
Mhm.
AO Atlanta is not doing a watch party because 8:30 is the start of work for many people, and I know personally I don't have the time off to just do that when I also have to be taking time off for World Cup matches.
True.
But we will encourage anyone who wants to watch. If they want to go to a bar that's showing it, great. We just didn't want to put that extra strain on our partners at Fido because Lord knows they will be incredibly busy for every World Cup match coming up in November. But I'll probably wake up, turn on the TV, and watch from bed. Yeah,
Yeah,
you can.
like,
Yeah,
I'll be here in the office. I'm gonna be
yeah,
looking. Yeah,
exactly. My office TV will be on. Let's put it that way.
yeah. So it'll be kind of like a live discussion while
Yeah,
I'm trying to talk through everything else going on in the world. Oh, hey,
yeah.
by the way, look what just happened.
But AO Atlanta will be announcing some very important news for the World Cup.
Oh,
We'll be announcing that tomorrow. So if you want to give us a follow, you can find us at AO Atlanta on any of the socials. And we'll have important news breaking tomorrow regarding the World Cup. But we will be at Fido on Tuesday for that afternoon game against Saudi Arabia. And a reminder, we do give out free shots for every goal. So if you want to get toasted at 3 o'clock on a Tuesday, then come join us.
safe fandom is always encouraged and
Yes,
always.
put in your PTO request now for the World Cup. Obviously, the U.S. plays on a Monday and a Tuesday. The Monday is Thanksgiving week. You may already have that off, so check.
Yes.
And then that Tuesday after the Thanksgiving, luckily, the big one is on Black Friday. So if you're working that day, I apologize, but most of us will be at least off in some capacity, especially if you can find a way to get off at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
I got high school football playoffs at that point, my friend.
Yeah.
I think I'm in the quarterfinals.
My high school team won't be my South Gwinnett probably won't be involved, although they've had a good start to the
South
season.
Gwinnett under Brian Lamar, they've done really well this year.
My brothers won't be involved. They're at Archer, and they're not having a great season.
No, they are not.
No.
All right. So from 30,000 feet, this is you at cruising altitude before we get into the specific questions. What are you looking at when it comes to this window, when it comes to the national team? What are you looking at? What are you looking for from the larger picture?
Yeah, so it's hard to be super critical of the team as a whole because there are injuries in very key areas. So, that still does open up some position battles. And so one of those injury areas is left back. Jedi Robinson is out with an injury. We don't think it's very serious, but obviously, he is still in recovery mode. So that opens up a position battle at left back. And it's not to replace Jedi, but for a very long time, it seemed very clear that Greg was going to take Jedi and Dest as his starting fullbacks, and maybe two right backs, and Sergino Dest as your deputy left back. Well, now with Sam Vines in camp, with Joe Scally in camp, Sam Vines a true left back, Joe Scally a swing fullback. He prefers the left or the right side, but if he can, make a case in this camp that he can still play left side very well, or if Sam Vines can make a case in this camp that he can be relied upon to defend on the left side, maybe, no, there's no chance for Bello. Maybe you're looking at Sam Vines or Joe Scally sneaking in as the second choice left back. And again, it could be that you still bring, quote, 3 right backs with Joe Scally, but one of those is now a second choice left back. So I think that is a big position battle. So I'm looking at those individual position battles. We also have a battle for the third choice goalkeeper with Ethan Horvath and Sean Johnson.
But is that a battle? Should it be?
Yeah, I think it is a battle, honestly. I think that you have Ethan Horvath, who has been very good for the most part when called upon by the U.S. He's had a couple of blunders, but has been very reliable. And you had Sean Johnson, who has been called in to just about I think he was called into every single World Cup qualifying camp for some reason or another. And Greg Berhalter values that. Greg Berhalter has proven time and time again that he cares more about the person and how they fit into the group than how great they are as a player. I'm not trying to say that anyone is bad, but he definitely prefers the fit within the group over pure talent. And Sean Johnson seems to fit into the group. That's why I do think there is a battle. I also think they're pretty similar goalkeepers. I don't think they're like that much different. I know Ethan Horvath does have experience in Champions League, and that probably gives him the edge from that standpoint. But as goalkeepers, they're not that much different. And then you have position battles at center back. Maybe the fans want it to be a position battle because we're tired of Aaron Long just getting meritocracy points, or not even meritocracy points, nepotism points, and being able to start for Berhalter because of something he did back in 2019 when we didn't know what this team would look like.
Yeah.
But you do have Eric Palmer-Brown and Mark McKenzie coming into camp. Unfortunately, Chris Richards and CCV won't be able to make their final case. I do think that one of those guys is, maybe both of them are going to Qatar. I think you're getting 4 center backs in Qatar. That makes sense on a 26-man roster, but maybe you bring a 5th. He has 9 total defenders on this roster, and I can't imagine he's going to deviate too much from the breakdown, from the splits in positions that he'll have in Qatar. So maybe they're playing for a 5th center back spot. Maybe they're playing for the 4th center back spot. I think that EPB, for me, is a better all-around defender in that position, and I'd like to see him play. But I'd also like to see Mark McKenzie play. He's had a really good start in Belgium this year, and these are guys who need to take advantage of that opportunity. Another dude, Malik Tillman, has a chance to make one last case to bring him there. But to round out the kind of position battle thing, I think you're looking at Jordan Morris and Paul Arriola fighting for the final spot in Qatar. I don't know why you would bring both of those guys if you have a healthy Tim Weah and a healthy Gio Reyna, and a healthy Pulisic and a healthy Aronson. That's 4 wingers. I can't imagine Arriola and Morris are coming in to, 1, play over any of those guys, and 2, why we'd need both of them to have 6 wingers. I think that you might see one of those 2 battling for that final spot on the roster, especially if Christian Roldan is going to be injured going into the World Cup. We don't know how that recovery process has been. We know that Greg Berhalter loves some Christian Roldan for reasons that we're not quite sure of yet.
That Greg Berhalter only knows.
Yeah. But it is one of those things where if you're Arriola and Morris, you have to understand how the numbers are going to break down. You have to understand that where you sit in that depth chart, you have to have some self-awareness of that and understand that this is your last chance to make a case to Greg that you deserve to be going to Qatar in November.
Folks on the Twitch pitch, obviously, you kind of addressed Don Starr's thought about Bello.
Sorry, Bello isn't starting in the second Bundesliga, y'all.
Yeah.
We can talk about that transfer and how that was a bad move for his career another time, but homeboy chased the name and didn't really think about how he would progress as a footballer there. Sorry.
And then the other one, Rack just hates it because all of these discussions, because all he can think of is Miles and what it could have been at the back.
Yeah, I tell you what, Miles needs to figure himself out here. He's I'm hoping that he understands that his career can still only get better from here, and that he has the future in front of him. Uh, it sucks, man. Like, it sucks. I feel so badly for him, and I understand why he is feeling a lot of different ways about how fate has given him this blow. But I really hope that Miles understands that he has an entire city, well, yeah, city, not Cobb County, but the city is behind him, and an entire fan base with U.S. men's national team fans who truly did really like Miles Robinson, want to see him. We want to see him make that next step, whatever that may be, uh, and we want to see him come back healthy and come back strong, and maybe even come back stronger,
Mm-hmm.
because he could be a very vital piece of Atlanta United
Mm-hmm.
going forward, and possibly a vital piece of the U.S. men's national team come 2026.
Stephen Goff this morning before SDH started. Berhalter says Aaron Long and Walker Zimmerman will partner in central defense versus
Yeah.
Japan. Possible substitution in the second half. The duo versus Saudi Arabia is undetermined. And then McKenzie, and you mentioned McKenzie and APB are the other center backs. Matt Turner starts in goal Friday for 3GB.
Yeah, I think Matt Turner starting in goal is the one that like makes the most sense, because he is. I think I've said for a while he's your number one. I think he's a much better actual goalkeeper than Zach Steffen. Start him.
Mm-hmm.
I vehemently disagree with Greg Berhalter that Aaron Long is a starting quality center back at the World Cup level, but we'll find out Friday, because Japan is a World Cup quality team and are pretty darn good. And then even on Tuesday, Saudi Arabia beat out Japan in their qualifying group. I think Japan is a much better team. I don't think that's a strong statement. That's true. But these are two tough opponents, and opponents that are going to give you a taste of what the level will be come November. And we're going to see if Aaron Long can handle it. He hasn't looked good for the U.S. national team. I mean, he's looked okay, but like, it hasn't been a stellar performance for him anywhere. And he hasn't really looked as good as he has in MLS. And sorry, yeah, I do rate MLS as a lower league than what Eric Palmer Brown plays in Ligue 1, or even to an extent what Mark McKenzie plays in the Belgian Pro League. I mean, maybe they're comparable, but at the end of the day, I don't think Aaron Long is saying that he's such a much better player, and he's certainly not performing well or at a high quality in MLS to say that he's better than these players who are doing it in better leagues against better competition week in and week out.
Other question that I wanted to ask you about at the back is Tim Ream. Right now in the U.S. in the championship, you look at his numbers, especially on the defensive side, and he is, I want to say he's top 1% in interceptions per 90 minutes at just under 4 picks a game. And there are some other metrics where he is in the top 30%, top 25%. But yeah, the one about interceptions really does stand out. What is your thought on Tim Ream and where he either may fit, should fit, or won't fit when it comes to 3GB and what he has in mind?
Yeah, so I don't think he's going to Qatar first and foremost. I don't think he's going. I don't think John Brooks is going. And I think this goes back to our problem, just the general problem with the way Berhalter has approached the U.S. men's national team, and that he's so system oriented. And he says this multiple times. He says, we look at the way we see games playing out and build a roster for that. And while I understand that to an extent, Greg Berhalter very rarely accounts for his plan not working. That's his biggest flaw, is he thinks his plan will work, even though, buddy, you have the most talented generation of American soccer players ever, and somehow still finished third and needed to not screw it up royally on the final match day. So get off your damn high horse and stop thinking that you're some brilliant manager with a brilliant system that players just come into and start producing. We still have yet to see a U.S. men's national team striker play at a decent level. So what makes you think that your system is somehow just going to be so great and so overarchingly perfect that you're not going to need a guy like Tim Ream or John Brooks, who are definitively better defenders than any other player we have right now on this national team? Sorry, Tim Ream is one of the best players in the Premier League, and John Brooks has taken a fall, but he's still better than most of the other guys that we have options for. But because they're not fast, which they're not, Greg Berhalter doesn't want him in his team, only because Greg Berhalter sees his team playing this very specific way. Now, I agree that I don't know if Tim Ream or John Brooks going up against Wales or England is necessarily a great proposition. But we don't know that for sure. We don't know the way that England or Wales are definitively coming out to play against us. And maybe, Wales decides to really bunker. Well, don't you want a ball playing center back to be able to, unlock a bunker defense? I mean, John Brooks did that in Nations League against Honduras, a team that was more than happy to not try to play soccer for the second half of the game.
Exactly.
And kick the ball everywhere. And yes, they tried to counter, but John Brooks was the one who passed the ball to Weston McKennie, who headed it to Jordan Pefok, who scored. And it was his line-breaking pass because he pushed up the field that did that. I'm not going to sit here and say that I think that John Brooks or Tim Ream are going to win us necessarily World Cup soccer games, because I understand where their deficiencies are, and they are not fast. Tim Ream is doing very well in a back three-ish formation, not having to be someone who is chasing the ball everywhere, chasing defenders everywhere. Obviously, the U.S. doesn't play that type of system. Greg Berhalter wants to play a higher line. He wants to pressure up the field. So it's very fair to criticize Brooks and Ream, which he has done consistently, for those not being their strengths. But it's just silly to me that you think that those players still don't provide quality that you could have on your team. Specifically Tim Ream, and John Brooks, on both of them, who have great international experience. John Brooks has scored in a World Cup. And I think that it's foolish to think that they don't bring value to your team. Yet a guy like Aaron Long is just so irreplaceable that you had to call him up to camps to bring him in to rehab while he was rehabbing from an Achilles tear.
John Brooks, let me ask you about John Brooks, specifically his lack of activity in game situations. I mean, yeah. Benfica only picked him up 3 weeks ago. And looking at players who are in form, and I'll get to the striker position in a second, so we'll just put the striker position up here. Players who are getting regular minutes, because I think he's only had one appearance so far in the 3 weeks that he's there, in addition to him not being a guy who is attached to the system, capital T, capital S. And I'll go ahead and reinstate that for the purpose of this conversation. Yeah. I'm playing devil's advocate here with John Brooks specifically because of his lack of activity in the current season and how much of a detriment that could be with someone that you need to have in form in a World Cup situation.
I mean, I'll go back again to say that Aaron Long was called up to the national team. Well, never have, before he played a handful of games after an injury recovery. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking at form, I think that it's a term that Greg Berhalter and coaches like to use to justify certain call-ups.
Yeah.
But Ricardo Pepi was called up before he started producing. And he had 1 assist when he got called up. Now, he's scored since then. We're very thankful for that. But he had 1 assist, which was he had 2 total goal contributions within the past year. That includes the U.S. national team. So I think the idea of form is something that I think as a fan, we definitely look at and say, well, this guy's playing really well in this league. I mean, if form were the only justification to get called up, Georgi Mihailovic would have been in many camps before this.
But I think form is a moving target to whomever
exactly.
is getting the conversation.
Yeah. That said, I fully understand why John Brooks is not rated as a top defender in this national team anymore, because he had a very big falling out at Wolfsburg. He hasn't looked great for the U.S. men's national team in a very long time. Mm-hmm. And he is struggling to even get minutes in Benfica, which is definitely a step down from Wolfsburg in terms of league competition quality. Maybe not in club. I think Benfica is still possibly a better club than Wolfsburg, but that's a debate for another day. Right. But the point is, it's definitely a notch down from where he was, and he's not getting the minutes that he wanted. Now, maybe that is because, hey, he's only been here for a handful of weeks. I don't think he was signed to be a starting center back, but it's fair to criticize or point out that about John Brooks. And that's where I kind of have landed on Brooks, is that I do think something happened between John Brooks and Greg Berhalter, possibly back in that September camp. We know Weston McKennie got into some trouble, and I've heard that maybe John Brooks was involved in some way, shape, or form. I have zero corroboration, but that's just been something that some reporters and some other people who have connections to the national team have hinted at. But I don't know exactly what happened between those two, but something did.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand why, again, Greg Berhalter, who values the group over the best 26 players, wouldn't call up John Brooks and hasn't called up John Brooks for, by November, it'll be a full year.
Right.
If you remember, he got called up into that October camp, but he was hurt, and that's where Walker Zimmerman stepped up and shined. And again, credit to Walker Zimmerman, and a knock against John Brooks, taking your opportunities when given to you. And it seems that Brooks hasn't really taken opportunities given to him, both at club and country, for the past year.
All right, let's go up top. And I know that when you hear Josh Sargent sit there and say, my confidence is at an all-time high, I would maintain, sir, it's Norwich and it's the championship.
Right.
But you've got to, I know that you have to carry yourself that way. Otherwise, why be a striker?
Mm-hmm.
Why be thinking of yourself as starting quality if you don't carry yourself in that way? When you look,
I'd rather him say he's confident than he's not. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's
and he looks confident, so that's a plus.
Yeah, especially in the body glove and the Superman outfit.
Yeah.
Brought to you by Volkswagen. Who, if you'd like to sponsor this network, feel free, because we'll have VW. We'll put VW spinners up all over the place.
They might be able to bring you some cash in.
Yes, cash would be nice. All right, so striker position. I know, like I said, I look at Josh Sargent and I look at him as almost two separate people. You have the league play Josh Sargent, and then you have the national team Josh Sargent that seems to disappear when you need him the most. When you look at the striker position in this window, what do you see?
Yeah, I don't think any of these guys, actually, surprisingly, the one who's been the most productive at the U.S. national team level is Ricardo Pepi, who is the one who's in the least, the worst form at his club. Now, granted, he did score over the weekend. That's great. Very happy to see that. But that's one goal. That's his first goal in almost 365 days. So, we're not doing beer showers necessarily for that quite yet.
No.
I think the problem that we have with our national team, and this is again a criticism of Berhalter, is no forward has looked good. You have Jordan Pefok, who's banging in goals at every league he's been in, that can't find a goal for the U.S. national team. Now, granted, he missed a great sitter in against Mexico. Pulisic also missed a sitter against Mexico. Well, not quite a sitter, but they both missed big opportunities against Mexico. But so did Jesus Ferreira, and he seems to be the locked-in starter. Jesus Ferreira missed tons of opportunities throughout qualifying against lesser opponents in Mexico. He missed multiple against El Salvador in a game that we only won 1-0.
Yeah.
Ricardo Pepi looked not great.
No.
In terms of production. Jossie Zardes, good Lord, the biggest criticism I'll have of Greg Berhalter is why the hell you started Jossie Zardes against Canada, because what in the
blue blank?
Yeah, I mean, this FCC violation.
Not nothing. Expletive deleted. I've got
to. So the problem is just we don't have strikers who perform well at the national team level for this team, and that to me is a Berhalter problem, because you do have a guy like Ferreira or Pefok, or even when Pepi was scoring a lot, he brought in some confidence, but it's not like those goals were created because of the great system Berhalter had. It was kind of desperation at that point. We were down to Honduras at halftime, and Greg had to put everything forward. His job was on the line. So, I don't know how to evaluate these strikers right now, because I think they're severely hampered by what the system makes them do. Now, that said, I think that overall Josh Sargent is the ideal striker for what Greg Berhalter wants his strikers to do, even more so than Jesus Ferreira, who tends to drop a little deeper and not get as into the box as much. I think Sargent is better at doing that. He still very much needs to improve his runs in the box, which have gotten better for Norwich, but early days, we can't base everything based on a couple of, not even a month of games yet. I don't know, but I'm tempted to want to start Sargent, but I also don't know what they're doing in training, and who's performing the best in training. But from the clips I've been showing, Josh Sargent's been looking good in training. So for me, I would start Sargent that first game against Japan, who's the best team that we're going to be playing, or the better of the two that we'll be playing, and to see how he operates. Because if he can do it against Japan, I have a lot more confidence he'll be able to do it against Wales or Iran.
Rack, before he had to go to work, so wants to know, are we moving off the Pepe hype train to the Jesus hype train, though?
Hype train, I don't know if I would say that they're hype trains. The Pepe hype train just wasn't on the right track. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
He had a similar issue to me that I think George Bello had, and they're slightly different, but they went to the Bundesliga because that's a better league. That doesn't mean it's where their talent level was. And I think now that he's with Groningen in the Netherlands in the Dutch league, that is a better place for his talent. Similar to Josh Sargent, who went to Norwich, which the Premier League 1 is a much tougher league. It's, I think, the best league in the world when you look at top to bottom. It's a team that in that league was not good.
No.
Just plain not good.
Nope.
He went down to the championship and has been able to score. I don't think that's a knock against him. I think that's saying, yeah, that's about where his talent level is. Had Josh Sargent, instead of going to Germany, gone to Portugal, maybe France, maybe Belgium or Netherlands, one of those leagues, right? We might have seen him score more frequently because it's a level that fits him a little bit better.
Before we go, what other questions do you have on your mind leading into this first match, where looking at juice boxes, Japan is a slight favorite right now to plus 154. Your 90-minute draws a plus 219, and the U.S. are a plus 177.
Yeah. So I'm wondering how well we can deal with an actual press. I don't think any of the teams we'll play in our group necessarily will do that.
Right.
I don't think that's England and Wales' prerogative. Iran, I'm not even sure what they'll be looking like from a tactical standpoint and come the World Cup. If they keep their manager, who knows? But I do think that it's good to see that, because you're still going to be under pressure in a World Cup setting. So can you deliver under pressure? It may not be the press necessarily, but you'll be pressured. Jesus Ferreira, if he's your starter, is going to have a dude up your back, be it John Stones or Harry Maguire or the center back from Wales or whatever.
You want it to be Harry Maguire at this rate, don't you?
Yeah, if Harry Maguire is starting for England, just cross the ball in the box and he'll head one home for us. So it'll be great. But I want to see how we actually respond to the press, because we're going to be under pressure. The World Cup, the level is at such an intense level. You're playing against two teams in England and Wales whose leagues and national identities are built on hard-nosed, get-stuck-in football. That's going to be the way that they're going to approach you. It may not be a constant press, but they're going to put you under pressure when you do have the ball, especially in their final third, their defensive third. So I want to see how we respond to that. That's my biggest question tomorrow, specifically. When it comes to the game against Saudi Arabia, I want to see who Greg Berhalter starts, because I think those starting positions are going to be the ones that he goes, these are the guys I want to see one last look of. Obviously, that's the last game he's going to see before Qatar.
Mm-hmm.
He has tons of data on these guys. So I feel like the Saudi Arabia lineup will be the not experimental one necessarily, but it will be set up to experiment which players are ready and which ones aren't.
Then one last thing before we go. Apparently, according to Nico Cantor, Tata Martino said he's only taking 3 strikers to Qatar. So basically,
they have more than 3?
Raul Jimenez, Funes Mori, Martin, or Santi Jimenez. So basically, if all are healthy, who would you leave out? That's the question that Nico has to the floor this morning. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with that.
That is interesting. Yeah, I think Raul Jimenez and Funes Mori are going.
Mm-hmm. So it'll come down to Martin and Jimenez.
Yeah.
So Santi Jimenez, not Raul Jimenez. So that is one of the questions to the floor. Okay. Quick promo. What's going on with Soccer for US and with Bartimus Prime as he heads to Vegas?
Okay, so we will have a reaction episode after I get back to the 2 friendlies that are coming up, and we'll probably look at more what does this mean for the Qatar World Cup, kind of as we did, or as I did in the preview episode. So we'll have an episode coming up next week after they come out. Probably also talk about a couple weeks after that. We'll talk about the U.S. women's team against both England and Spain, 2 very big matchups. So we'll be doing a lot of preview post view, and then we'll have some World Cup previews as well. Again, AO Atlanta will be announcing some great news for the World Cup coming up in November. We'll be announcing that tomorrow, and make sure you follow us there. I do want to point out as a personal. Not even a favor, but just as a personal plea. I know it's an international break, but we have lots of women's soccer action coming up this weekend. Arsenal Tottenham on Saturday, and also Houston versus OL Reign on Saturday, which is an NWSL playoff battle. So I know you may be missing soccer either early morning or late at night. It's there. Both of those are going to be on Paramount Plus. So that's plus.
And before we all go as a group, I don't think folks understand how completely and totally wacky, crazy nuts the NWSL is right now when it comes to chasing the playoffs.
Listen, I think there are 12 teams in the league. I think 14 can still make the playoffs, right?
No,
like, that's
absolutely.
just what it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, so after last night, so here's how it is for those that haven't been keeping track. Portland's at 35 points. San Diego's at 34. Rainer at 34, 1 less win. Houston's at 33. Current are at 33, exact same record, but goal difference is big.
Yep. So they had a really bad start, but they have been stonks recently.
So Kansas City is in 5th. Red Stars are in 6th at 30. Angel City's at 29. The Courage are at 28. And then you get into 9, 10, 11, and 12, where Gotham probably would be relegated in a certain situation other than that. But Orlando's at 21, Spirit at 19, Racing's at 17. Gotham, I think, have lost 11 in a row now, and they're at the bottom. But, seriously, you look at everybody from 8 on up, and you're only separated by a good week's play. So NWSL, friend of the network, Jen Hildreth, is a key part and parcel to all of those calls.
Hi, Jen.
So
Bart, I would definitely say watch NWSL this weekend because there are some important playoff battles. Houston, OL Reign, as you just mentioned, they're a point apart, and those teams at this point now they're doing similar to MLS. They're playing for those home playoff games. Portland and San Diego playing for those first round buys. Shout out to San Diego, by the way, minus some racism incidents in the stands, but 33,000 at Snapdragon Stadium. Mm-hmm. My bet, John, and I'm making a very forecasting prediction.
Okay.
Prediction here. My bet is that the U.S. Women's National Team is playing a send-off friendly in San Diego ahead of the 2023 World Cup.
Not a surprise, and if it's at Snapdragon, if they're drawing low 30s consistently, you want that kind of heat. You want that.
Exactly. I think you'll see one in LA and one in San Diego. That's my prediction. But
there you go. Obviously, what I will do early part of next week on Monday and Tuesday, I will send you the open invite for the. So let's go ahead and say 10 o'clock Eastern hour. If you want to pop in at 8 o'clock local time while you're in Vegas on Monday and Tuesday, I will give you that opportunity. The door will be open. If you are incredibly busy and having to actually do work stuff, we will tape material Monday and Tuesday and turn it later in the day. So the option is there. The forbidden door is open.
All right. All right. I love it.
And so, you can be Kazuchika Okada when it comes to our particular coverage. But be safe. Enjoy the game tomorrow. We'll be watching on our separate screens and everything. We'll catch up early part of next week to do reviews and previews, and we'll rock and roll from there. Thanks for hanging out again, my friend.
Thank you, John. Everyone have a great day. Cheers.
And there's Bartimus Prime, everybody. He's sipping his coffee, so he's ready to go. And all right, so before we go, since we are in the north end of the Power Hour, got you through 2:45 with all of your Nations League. Get you into the latter part of the afternoon when it comes to Liga MX Femenil. That's at 6 and 6:05. Necaxa is a favorite against Santos Laguna at a +121. Toluca is at a minus 110 on the road at Querétaro. You've got South America early evening, more Liga MX Femenil at 8 o'clock. Club America, big favorite on the road at ASL. Pachuca, big favorite at home against Atlas at a minus 256. Also, Liga MX Femenil at 10 o'clock. Big night for them there as well. Club Tijuana is a minus 217 at Mazatlan. Monterrey is a minus 345 at home against Cruz Azul. Your numbers and juice boxes for RSL and Atlas are RSL's a plus 129 at home. 90-minute draw before they go to PKs is a plus 220. And Atlas is a plus 184. Going back into some of the other news really quickly from yesterday, the U17s fell to Slovakia in the to their U18s in the Czech Republic. 1-0 in the U18 Václav Ježek tournament. The U19s cruised to a 5-0 win over Malta in the Slovenia Nations Cup. Revelations Cup, the U20s had a 3-1 win over Peru. Chicago Fire's Brian Gutierrez got the equalizer, and then the U.S. were off and running from there. The U19s youth national team are headed to, once again, Slovenia. So it's Carrera, Noah Allen, who were a part of that roster as well. So I think, once again, let me check the papers and see if we are missing anything when it comes to what is going on. Manchester United has announced a 115.5-pound net loss, with revenues rising by 18%, still a net loss of 115.5 million pounds. This was interesting, and once again, take it for the proverbial grain of salt. Antonio Conte being linked with a return to Juve, so we'll keep an eye on that. The 3 and the 4-letter paper, we're avoiding those. Daily Express. Those in the camp of Harry Maguire reportedly feel that he's been let down by the players and staff at Manchester United. A lot of them probably feel the same. Chelsea boss Graham Potter reportedly keen to explore the idea of recalling Callum Hudson-Odoi from his loan spell at Bayer Leverkusen. Arsenal have reportedly opened talks with the agent of Eintracht Frankfurt attacking midfielder Jesper Lindstrom ahead of a possible January transfer. The Times, the new government is considering putting plans for an independent football regulator on hold, giving the game a fixed deadline to come up with an acceptable alternative. The FA is prepared to accept that some FA Cup ties may have to be played without replays this season to ease fixture congestion, 3rd and 4th round specifically. Arthur Melo has recruited a physiotherapist, a fitness coach, and a nutritionist to work with him daily as he looks to impress Jurgen Klopp to forge a, quote, lengthy career at Liverpool, according to the Times. Daily Star, Manchester United could drive a wedge between Barca and Atletico Madrid's feud by signing Antoine Griezmann, according to reports. The Mirror has said that Barca is going to declare they will pursue legal action after details surrounding Lionel Messi's contract talks were released in the Spanish press. Telegraph, American teams could take on the Champions League winners, with UEFA planning to revamp the Super Cup into a 4-club mini tournament. And almost 2/3 of lower league clubs would consider early kickoffs to reduce floodlight usage amid cost of living crises, according to a survey. This is your required reading for the day. UEFA's statement apparently blaming Liverpool supporters. This is in The Guardian. So go to The Guardian, read this one. This is a lot of in-depth material here. This is the headline and the one sentence. UEFA's statement apparently blaming Liverpool supporters for causing the delay to start the Champions League final in Paris was prepared a considerable time before the day of the match. So once again, that's your reading for the day. The Guardian article on UEFA and the Champions League final. Liam Rossignol has been relieved of his duties as interim manager at Derby County, with the League One club keen on appointing Rotherham's Paul Warne as his replacement. Daily Record. Ambitious English side Doncaster City have used an ancient claim over their national status to apply for a place in next season's Scottish Cup. And that is a look at the papers. Let's take a look at injuries. Mark Noble has returned to West Ham for his role as sporting director. So very, very cool stuff. Keeping an eye on your own. So keep an eye on that. Ange Postecoglou has distanced himself from the Leicester post. Let's see. That looks like that with all of the news is pretty close. Let's see. When it comes to injuries, Everton sweating over news. Nathan Patterson, right back Nathan Patterson, after he was carried off on a stretcher during Scotland's 3-0 win over Ukraine in Nations League on Wednesday. was in the 25th minute, replaced by Aaron Hickey. So we'll keep an eye on that. Here's something that's interesting. Bundesliga club Hoffenheim's media department will not run any stories on the World Cup in Qatar due to the country's record on human rights violations, they said on Thursday. Club's media department said while in the past World Cups it had regularly provided Hoffenheim fans with coverage, especially in relation to the club's international players, it would not be doing so this time. It said providing the coverage could not come without discussing the major non-sporting issues such as human rights. Club said in a statement, all these aspects play a role in not wanting to just simply inform in a carefree manner, a celebratory description based purely on the sporting aspect, solely based on goals and performance without looking at the wider picture where this so-called football festival will be held is, in our opinion, not allowed. But we cannot deliver these necessary analytical comments for the coverage of the sporting event from many thousands of kilometers away. Interesting. And very, very cool that they're taking a stand. Host of injuries have stuck France in the lead up to a pair of the Nations League matches this week. Add Aston Villa defender Luca Digne to a long list of players ahead of matches against Austria and Denmark. France coach Didier Deschamps has called up Rennes left back Adrien Truffert as a replacement for Digne, who's got a problem with his right ankle. Digne had been a late addition after having joined his teammates on Monday after AC Milan defender Theo Hernandez was withdrawn because of a torn adductor muscle. And remember, we talked about Hugo Lloris a day ago, also ruled out of the games because of a right thigh injury, replaced by Nantes goalkeeper Alban Lafont. France plays Austria Thursday, travels to Copenhagen later to take on Denmark. Alexander Isak is withdrawn from the Sweden squad through injury to leave Eddie Howe sweating on his fitness. Missed training on Wednesday ahead of the Nations League fixtures against Serbia and Slovenia, heading back to Tyneside. Alexander, according to the Swedish FA, examined, among others, our medical team, and it was established he will not be available for games against either Serbia or Slovenia. He will therefore leave the squad. Started 3 of his 4 countries' games in June. Disappointed, obviously, to pull out of the roster. And how about San Marino? Let me see if I can. I'm going to violate a tenet here when it comes to doing the show. So I'm going to work my way all the way back here to the office and see if I can see if I can do it. I think I can. Where is it? It is right here. Here's your San Marino scarf right there. Right there. That's your San Marino scarf that I have here to support one of the teams that is in the 200s when it comes to the FIFA rankings. Their 18-match losing run came to a close with a draw against the Seychelles in a friendly, goalless draw, second ever. They couldn't grab their second ever international win, but they haven't won for 18 years. Bottom of the rankings at FIFA's 211 member countries at 211. Warming up before their group game against Estonia on Monday. Only success in 193 internationals came in a friendly against Liechtenstein in 2004. Unsuccessful in 124 games since. And it almost didn't take place because of the Seychelles squad having logistical difficulties getting their team to Europe. Seychelles are ranked 198. They hadn't won in their previous 45 internationals since an African Cup of Nations qualifier against Lesotho in 2016. It was only the second time San Marino faced opposition from outside of Europe, having lost to Cape Verde earlier this year, and they were looking to break that drought. Fabio Cannavaro is going to manage a club in Europe for the first time, named head coach of Serie B's Benevento. And Republic of Ireland is going to lock horns with Erling Haaland with Norway. And FA of Ireland confirmed Stephen Kenny's side will host Norway at the Aviva November 17 before traveling to Ta Kali to face Malta. And that'll be an interesting one. Former England Liverpool right back Glenn Johnson believes Trent Alexander-Arnold remains a world-class talent. Criticism from his form this season is premature. And let's see if there's anything else on the table. I think that is it. We have gone overtime in the power hour because there's so much to talk about. Seychelles, yes. Very nice, Nix. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, Bam, I try. A lot of walking, especially when we're doing live events and things like that. But, yep, man's got a San Marino scarf because he likes the underdog. So, yeah. So, Nix, let us all know how successful you are as she sells Seychelles down by the seashore. or the Seashore. I guess maybe it's the Seashore and the Seychelles. I don't know. But thanks for hanging out this morning on the Power Hour. Tomorrow, probably going to be something akin to a bit of a watch along because there's a game going on. You might have heard. So we'll kind of be keeping an eye on it as we're going through, and it might even be just a kind of like a live analysis kind of deal as we're watching, not necessarily doing play-by-play, but we'll talk about it as we're going and what you guys think about the match in and of itself. And so we'll get into that. That's probably going to take a lot of our time. Probably going to give our friends at Beyond Goals the week off so they can watch the match too. And we'll pick it back up with them on next week since we're in an international window and getting ready for the stretch run in Major League Soccer. So once again, reminder, for those of you that dig high school football, Hannah Gooden and myself at noon, GPB Sports Facebook page, Facebook Live. It will be a countdown to kickoff, getting you ready for the weekend. And then we're taping Recruiting 2022, and that'll be on at 7 o'clock tomorrow night ahead of the game of the week, which is Milton at North Cobb. So once again, we'll be back here at 9 o'clock. We're not going to do the early start because we don't have the weekend whip around patent pending trademark coming, hopefully. So we'll be back at 9:05 tomorrow morning, normal time, because there are no other MLS matches to talk about. And we'll get you ready for the weekend that will be and going through the U.S. match against Japan. And so we'll see what happens with all of that. Please be safe today. Please enjoy your time out there today. And, as we are always pushing through on these very, very busy days, just be safe, be well, and we will catch back up with you tomorrow. Mucha plata, y'all. Actually, no, wait. Let me read the promo before we go. So one more thing. For odor-free, clean, fresh air. I'm going to do the promo. I've got to do the whole promo correctly here. So once again, let's get our friends from Eliminize their due before we go. For odor-free, clean, fresh air, one place you need to go. It's Eliminize service. Deodorizing enclosed spaces like houses, apartments, and condos. Eliminize has created a customized solution that eliminizes all organic odors, including those like pets, cigarettes, and food. Realtors and property managers use the Eliminize service to eliminate bad odors to help them sell or rent their homes that much faster. The turnkey process makes it easy to work with said realtors and property managers. Kind to the environment, offering a green way to get rid of odors without any kind of toxic residue whatsoever. Different than Febreze or our favorite masking agents that we have either under the sink or above our heads in the cupboard. Because when you reach under the sink or you reach above your head in the cupboard, you spray the masking agent. That's why they call it a masking agent. It's masking the odor, not attacking the issue all the way down to the molecule, like our friends at Eliminize Service do with their proven scientific formula. Pricing one of two ways to make it easy for you, either cubic feet or parts per million, to come up with a price that is affordable, offering results in 24 hours or less. If you have any questions frequently asked or otherwise, one place you need to go, it's eliminize.com. Go to their website over my left shoulder. For those of you watching on Twitch, but do us a favor. What you do is add a /Atlanta after the .com so they know what part of the world that you are reaching out to them from to ask them for their help. Your full homework assignment, ELIMINIZE.com/Atlanta, eliminize.com/Atlanta. For odor-free, clean, fresh air, Eliminize Service, proud sponsors of everything SDH. That will officially wrap up the show. Fade, 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 fade. And there we go. There's no true fade here. But since that is another show, we'll be back at 9:05 tomorrow morning. And since it is the end of the show, mucha plata, y'all. And that means I get to do this.